Hey guys, my name is Mike Sipos and I'm the UF Extension Florida Sea Grant Agent in Collier County. And today we're going to fillet a fish that I'm not super familiar with because they occur a little bit deeper where I'm at in Southwest Florida, but the red porgy. So watch the video, read the description to learn more facts about this fish. I include plenty of facts that I don't talk about in the video because there's not enough time to touch upon all of them. As well as please take the survey linked in the description. Helps us justify the time and effort we spend on making these videos, my personal time going out there and capturing these fish, and then my work time editing and researching these species for y'all. So please take the survey linked in the description, read the description for more facts, watch the video to learn more about this fish as we fillet them, and I'm going to go ahead and move the camera closer so you can get a better look at my hands and we'll get started. Okay guys, so let's get started. This is our beautiful red porgy right over here. So to give you an idea of scale, this fish is 4.4 pounds and is 20.5 inches, and that's a maximum total length. So snout to tip of the tail, 20.5 inches, and then 18.25 inch from snout to the fork length, right over here, if you're wondering. So the IGFA world record is actually 17 pounds even, and that was caught in 1997 in Gibraltar. And that is the area of Spain that's closest to Africa, or really close to Africa, almost where Europe and Africa meet. So this fish actually has a really wide geographic distribution. They can be found in the eastern Atlantic Ocean and the western Atlantic Ocean. And in the eastern Atlantic Ocean, they can be found from the British Isles, throughout the Mediterranean, and all the way down to sub-Saharan Africa and like the Angola area. While in the western Atlantic, they can be found from New York all the way down to Argentina and all throughout the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. The Florida record for this fish was actually in 2019, and that was 4 pounds, 1.7 ounces and caught in St. Augustine. So I might actually have the Florida record here. I'm sure there's plenty of bigger sized porgies. You just have to, fill out the paperwork and everything. So somebody looking for a record, go catch one on a certified scale and fill out the paperwork. But this is really different than a lot of the other porgies that you might be familiar with as an inshore fisherman. These fish can be found anywhere from 30 feet to 800 feet, 900 feet. In some areas of Florida, they could be found in 100 foot or so. They could be found on seagrass beds. But over here in Southwest Florida, we had to go pretty far to catch these fish. So we are in about anywhere from 200 to 500 foot of water, and they're not very common occurrences where we're at in about that 100-foot range. But I believe in the middle grounds, the Florida middle grounds, where there's that complex rocky structure where these fish like to inhabit, you could catch them in a little bit shallower, which is about that 100-foot range. So because of their wide distribution, they inhabit different kind of depths and ranges. A lot of the times they're more of a deeper caught porgy, but they're a lot different than a lot of the porgies, like I mentioned, that you see of the Calamus genus. So this fish is actually, their scientific name is Pagrus. So it's different than the Calamus genus that you know of and love, which are the joltheads, the knobheads, the littleheads, the sauceri, all those porgies. And those have like more of a steeper sloping head. This one's sort of gradual and it sort of tapers off. A lot of those porgies will jut up and then they'll taper off that way. Another characteristic of this porgy is apparently that their nostril is round, and you could see that. And a lot of the other porgies in the Calamus genus are slit instead of this round thing. And I'll put a better video or a picture of that nostril. These porgies also have these really brilliant blue dots that are more apparent when they're alive or even on smaller individuals. They have this sort of pinkish reddish hue to them, and because of which sometimes they're called pink porgies, pinkies, silver snapper, although they're not in that Luganidae family of snapper. And because they're that red porgy, sometimes they're misidentified on the menu as red snapper, or in some different areas of the world, like I said, they have a huge distribution. They can be known as snapper. I know like Australia, they call grouper trout or cod, and they call snappers jacks, and they call porgies snappers. So common names are different all throughout. But let's go ahead and start cutting them up and you could follow along with me, and I'll try to pepper in some more facts. Like I said, I've never filleted this fish before, but it's pretty standard, sort of snapper porgy shape. So you're going to try to find, where this head meat begins. A lot of people like to cut straight down. I like to get everything out of it. So I'm poking around with my finger, and I can feel it this way. So I'm going to use this dorsal fin as a guide and do like a light sawing motion and pulling upwards. I'm going about, half an inch in or so, all the way up to the head. I'm going to repeat that, going down. Some people like doing both sides of the fish. It's not really necessary on something this small, but if you have like a large fish where it might be uneven, once you remove the fillet, the fish is sort of leaning. That's a good tip over there. And then we're gonna find where I can start cutting this meat, and it looks like, maybe sort of in this area. So these fish, in certain areas of the world, they've been overfished. Over here in the United States, they were actually overfished a little bit in the South Atlantic. They're not really targeted, but they have a lot of incidental bycatch commercially when you're fishing for other grouper and snapper species. And so much so that they did a stock assessment, and they thought that there was overfishing with them and the stock was overfished. So they had a moratorium on them in 1999 for 11 months to start rebuilding the stock. And currently they are overfished, but there is no overfishing involved on the South Atlantic side. But I am lifting up that fillet and skimming it with the tip of my knife. In the Gulf, there hasn't been a stock assessment on these fish, but they're believed to be pretty resilient. The IUCN, they're a species of least concern. These fish actually mature pretty fast. Females can mature at 1 to 2 years of age, and then males about 4 to 5 years of age. So that's relatively fast. They're protogynous hermaphrodites, meaning that they're born female and then later become male. So that's one side of the porgy right over there. We're gonna repeat that on the other side. But like I said, this is a fish that's really fast to fillet, so be sure to read that description, because I'm gonna include a lot more information, because it's only gonna take me a couple minutes to fillet this thing. So because of their protogynous hermaphrodites, if there's size selective fishing, so if people trying to catch like the largest red porgy, there's going to be a lower amount of males in the population to fertilize all the females. So that's one thing that sometimes being a protogynous hermaphrodite might not be super great as a life strategy, and in conditions where there is no fishing. It's great that everything's born a female first and then later converts, because more females, more eggs, more fish in the population. But with these fish, if the larger individuals are taken out of the population, the females will actually begin to change their sex to a male. And that could be bad in some senses, because larger females produce more eggs. So there's a lot of information on these fish out there, because they have that huge distribution range. So there's papers out there from like Europe, there's papers out there from the Caribbean, the South Atlantic, the Gulf. So we did both of the sides of this fish, and we're gonna go ahead and skin it. So when you skin a fish, I like to put it close to the edge of the table so I could hang my knife handle over and do a pull and sawing motion, hovering maybe a millimeter or two above the skin to prevent all that red muscles from being on the fillet. It doesn't really affect the taste that much or anything. I just like to get that off there. But so a lot of the fecundity information, it might be based on geographic region, like the reproductive kind of capabilities of this fish, but it's pretty interesting because they're also aquacultured. So there's a lot of information of raising these fish in captivity and having a good understanding of larval development because of that. But in one study they found that a female fish that was about 12 inches in length produced about 48,000 eggs, while a fish that was about 20 inches in length, and that's a female, produced about 488,000 eggs, so almost 10 times more. So that a larger fish, a fish that's 1 or 2 times, or a fish that's a couple inches bigger, doesn't produce just a little bit more eggs, it produces a lot more eggs. So something to keep in mind. So here's one fillet, there's another fillet. We're gonna go ahead and remove this Y bone, these ribs over here, and then we'll be done. So these fish eat a diet of crustaceans and mollusks. They have these canines that are pretty cool. Other porgies I don't believe really have like these really sharp front teeth, but they have these molars that are used to crush a lot of the mollusks and crustaceans in like the sand area. But they enjoy living around sort of rocky continental reef kind of structure. So there we go. Yep, but the species is moderately long-lived. I think the oldest fish out there aged was about 18 years old. But in a paper that was done in 1995, 1996, they actually aged 852 porgy, and they found that most of those porgies fit within that 3 to 8 year old age. So sort of an 18-year-old one would be a little bit of an outlier. But here we have it. I mean, I could keep on talking about this fish, but I'm going to include a lot more information in the description. We got our filleted porgy. Sorry it wasn't very long, but read the description to learn more facts about it. Please, please, please take the survey linked in the description as well, and stay tuned for more Fish Fillet Fridays.